This is why I use vintage lenses when I do photography and filmmaking, and why I think you should do that too. For starters, a good vintage lens will be much cheaper than a good new lens. Now that's not to say new lenses aren't good or that you can't get a good lens for a low price. However, vintage lenses are just much cheaper. Alongside the low cost, a lot of them are actually really high quality. Now you might be thinking that obviously with the low cost, maybe the image isn't as good as these newer lenses. Well, that's where you'd be wrong. You see, while these older lenses might not be as sharp as some of these newer lenses, they're still quite sharp and the image quality is really good. In fact, in a lot of modern day films, they still use vintage lenses because the characteristics that the lenses have is quite different to the modern day lenses and can actually create a much more pleasing image. One of my favourite things about vintage lenses is that because they're so cheap, you can get so many of them. Currently I have 3. One is a 28mm at f2.5, the other is a 50mm at f1.8, and the last one is a 135mm at f2.8. Now the great thing about these lenses is that because they're so cheap, it doesn't cost me very much to get them, and so now I have a full range of different focal lengths that I can use. The other thing you'll notice is that these are all really fast lenses from f1.8, f2.8 and f2.5. If I was to try and get a lens like this that was much newer and made for my camera system, it would cost far more. Now at this point I know you must be thinking, well, they're so cheap and the image quality is great, so what's the con? Well, for starters, it doesn't have any autofocus. Now to some of you that might not be a big deal, including me, it's not a big deal. However, to some of you, you might be quite used to autofocus. However, even to this day, even professional film sets will use manual focus because it's far more reliable than autofocus and you have full control over it. Sometimes what will happen when you're autofocusing is that it will focus on the wrong thing, or you'll get this weird focus hunting that doesn't usually look very professional, and so it's much better just to manual focus in a lot of cases. Now yes, manual focus does take a while to get used to. However, there are plenty of good videos that teach you how to get quite good at it, and obviously with practice you'll get far better. Here's some footage I took using a manual lens just to show you what it would look like, and hopefully you can get an idea of what the image quality looks like in comparison to a more modern lens. As you can see, the footage looks really good. Obviously I was manually focusing there, so sometimes it might not be completely in focus as sharp as perhaps an autofocus lens, but the thing is you're in control of that, so in some cases that might actually work to your advantage because you might be wanting to focus in on something and then slowly drift out of focus, and you have full control of that. On to the next thing that you might want to be aware of. While this isn't really a major con, it is something that you have to keep in mind. So obviously these vintage lenses are made to work with much older cameras such as film cameras. However, with the camera that you have now, it won't fit your lens mount. Don't worry though, it's quite easy to fix. All you need to get is a lens adapter, and what that does is it adapts the film lens to your camera body. Now it might be harder to find an adapter to fit your DSLR camera, as not all of them do have an adapter made for them to work with film lenses just due to the flange distance, so it won't always work correctly. However, with mirrorless systems, with most of them you should be able to adapt your vintage lenses onto your mirrorless camera. So for example, in my case I use a OM to E adapter that allows me to use old vintage Olympus OM lenses on my Sony a6000, which has an E mount. So all in all, I think vintage lenses are a great option to buy. They give you a different sort of look to your films and to your photos, and I think it's quite a nice one. So whether you're on a budget and you just want to find some new lenses to play around with, or you have other lenses and you just want to go for a different look, I think either way it's a really good option to have a look into. So that's all for today. I really hope you've got some knowledge out of this or got some entertainment out of it. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Leave a comment below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.